Hey everyone, and welcome back to the next dreaming video in my series of dreaming videos. Today we're going to be talking about the different types of dreams that you can have. So my first video mostly focused on how to have dreams and how to have them more often and remember them, which I think is the first most important step. And now what we get into is, okay, how do we interpret the types of dreams that we have? And so that's going to be all of what I'm covering in this video. And really quick, if you are new here, please remember to subscribe to my channel. I'm teaching you guys all about psychic development and tips and tricks on how to increase your psychic abilities. Now with these types of dreams, just understand I am not going to be able to cover them all, but if you understand the structure, you're going to be able to sort of guess and figure out what your dream might mean. But definitely check out my full course on it when it's available. I will have it linked down below. And I'm going to cover way more, and I'm purposely going to cover all sorts of different types of dreams. So I'm just going to give you an outline now of all the different ones I'm going to talk about. So first we're going to have kind of what I call random thought manifestations. And then we're going to have worry or emotional dreams. And then we're going to have psychic dreams. And then we're going to have shadow work and trauma dreams. And then out-of-body experience dreams, and then lucid dreaming. So let's get into random thought manifestation. This one I would kind of describe as like there is no point and purpose. Your brain is just kind of making up things, imagining things as you go. You're kind of jumping scenes. There might be like something that has a little bit of meaning, but then like you think about this and then it just like pops up. These dreams, I feel like when I wake up from them, I just can't find very much meaning from. I do think that almost every dream has some sort of meaning, but sometimes they're as simple as like, okay, well, obviously yesterday I went to the zoo, so I'm just dreaming about being at the zoo again. There's nothing more there. There's no emotions around it. There's nothing like crazy about it. It's just like my brain thought about a volleyball, and so there's a volleyball in the dream. Honestly, I always think that there's more to it than this, but I think that there's portions of your dream that maybe don't have a huge, significant, magnificent meaning, if that makes sense. It's just kind of like a little piece of your dream that's just kind of like your brain being like, woo, like if your brain could doodle on a piece of paper, that would be this type of dream. I think that this a lot of the times can be your brain processing certain thoughts, processing things that might have happened that day. Sex dreams can totally be thought manifestation. Like if you're constantly thinking about sex and wanting it, it might manifest in your dreams. I think that's absolutely one of the ways that those can manifest as kind of like a thought dream. But basically with these kind of random thought manifestations, there's not a whole lot of logic to it. It's kind of bouncing around and it doesn't make sense. Now the next type of dream, I feel like this is the majority of the dreams that people have. And I would call these worry or emotional dreams. Just let's call them worry dreams. And when I asked you guys what kind of dreams that you had on Instagram, almost every dream that you guys sent me fit into this category. And what I think that worry dreams are the things you are stressed out about most in life manifesting into your dreams. And I think that this is just kind of like a law of attraction thing. You're constantly thinking about it during the day, so then it's transferring over into your dreams, of course. But it's just even more terrifying in your dreams because it's visual, it's real, it feels real, and it can be scary because then you start to think, well, am I going to manifest this? Oh my gosh, I'm dreaming about the plane that I'm going to go on crashing, and then it happens, and then you're like, does that mean it's actually going to crash? I would say that it's probably not. I think it's more that your worry is manifested real time. I think that these dreams are very reflective. What they're trying to do is put up a mirror to your stresses, to your day-to-day life and your thinking, and they're trying to say, hey, this is what you're thinking about all the time, and like it's leaking over into your dreams. Like maybe you should deal with this so that you can move on with life. So just know that with the worry dreams, that just because they happen how you catastrophize them, how you worry that they will happen, doesn't mean that it's precognitive. It doesn't mean that it's telling the future that it will happen. It's a reflection of what's going on in your mind. And if your mind is constantly thinking about something, you're going to dream about it. And that could go also the positive way. I remember like When I was constantly thinking about my wedding and planning that, I was constantly having dreams about weddings. And some of it was good and some of it was bad. So this could be also, instead of a worrying dream, a romanticizing dream. So maybe it's something that you really want, that you keep romanticizing about. So, you could be really wanting a kid, and it could be that you're just romanticizing and thinking about it so much during your waking state that you equally are dreaming about it in your dreaming state. Does that mean that you're gonna have a kid? Maybe, maybe not. We're gonna get into that when we talk about psychic dreams and knowing if it is about the future or if it's more just kind of a reflection of your day. I'm going to try to give you guys an example of each, and the biggest one that I can think of with the worry dreams is like during 2020, I think I was about to have my son. We had just gone into lockdown. There's all these things happening on the news. The world is like falling apart. So I'm empathetic to that. I'm stressed out about it. And how does that manifest in my dreams? Well, everything's blowing up in my dreams. I have a dream where there's fire shooting from the ground. Everyone's running. There's bombs going off. It's just the world is literally falling apart. Now, some people, when they have a dream like that, they might be like, oh my God, it's gonna happen, this is gonna happen tomorrow, but that's really not the case. At least with my specific dream, I knew what it was, is that it felt to me energetically like the world was falling apart. And so my dreams are just manifesting this. And so I needed to understand that I kind of needed to stop thinking about it, so that I could not have such awful, scary dreams. I do remember one of the earliest dreams that I had. I was crushing on some boy in elementary school. And in the dream, he came up to me in the school cafeteria and kissed me. And I remember I shot through the ceiling, the roof of the school, and I was so happy, unbelievably happy and elated, and I woke myself up. And so that was clearly a positive manifestation, because I was constantly thinking about this kid, constantly thinking about how I liked him, and then it kind of manifested in that dream. Does that mean it's going to happen? Absolutely not. It definitely did not. But that's an example of kind of it manifesting in a dream, something that I really wanted or desired manifesting. And I will say too, if you guys have examples of each of these, please list them down below, because my examples might not be enough for some people to understand. So maybe they can get examples from you. The next one that we're going to talk about is shadow work / trauma dreaming. And I'm kind of giving this an overarching term, and there's sub parts of it. And so basically, and this is kind of leaking into what I was just talking about, but this is things that we are ignoring that need to be addressed. And I really believe that either it's our guides or our spiritual team bringing it up to us and saying, hey, you need to deal with this. You need to stop stressing out about this. Or it could just be that our subconscious is telling us, hey, you're stuffing this down and there's no more space for it here. So shadow work is stuff like that. It's the stuff that we really need to work through, come to an understanding that, hey, I need to do better and find solutions for this. And a lot of us don't do that work. And what do? Is we shove it in a box. And then what happens is, I feel like in our dreams, that box comes out and we're gonna, it's okay, well, this is the only time we're gonna deal with it. So here it is. And I feel like those are the worst. And I feel like the more that I work on that shadow work, the more that I work on those worries and those fears that I have, the less that they manifest in my dreams, and it's wonderful. I wish I would have known it sooner. Now, this can honestly look like anything, which is hard because I can't narrow it down to, oh, this only looks like this. But for example, drowning, anything negative, getting chased, getting stabbed, dying, falling off a cliff, drowning. Did I already say that? I know a family member who used to dream about crashing a plane. There's just so many different ways that it can manifest. Another common trauma dream is your teeth falling out. And that can mean so many different things for so many different people. For example, for me, I don't know, I think the teeth falling out for me whenever it happens is loss of control for me. But that doesn't always mean it's that way for you. Basically, these are dreams that are borderline nightmares, honestly. They might be a lighter version of a nightmare. I feel like a nightmare is just hey, you need to pay attention to this even more. This has been really, really pushed and repressed. And what I think often happens with these dreams is that they can either be one time or they can be reoccurring. And so when we talk about reoccurring dreams, I think about, okay, what is the reoccurring theme that's going on here in your life? And so an example that I will give is like for myself. When I was in high school going into college, I constantly would have dreams about being on stage, like theater stage, and forgetting my lines. And I did theater in high school and all that good stuff. And that was a reoccurring dream that would just be awful. And once I stopped to examine what it meant, I think from my memory, it was kind of just like me not living up to people's expectations. And that was just like a big thing at that time in my life because I was going through college. I was worried about impressing people, and the stress to be really good at what I did was very high around that time in my life. And so that is how it manifested for me in a dream. Another reoccurring dream that I had was around volleyball. So that was, it was a different place every time. It was a different situation, different people, but the common theme was volleyball. And to me, that's specific to me because I played a lot of volleyball. And when I again stopped to examine like what was the theme here? Why was this happening? I realized, okay, well, volleyball, and again, we'll get into this when we get into interpreting, but volleyball to me was a very like communal activity, and it was very much about friendships and friendships with like other females and wanting to fit in that sense. And so whenever I have dreams about volleyball, I know that there's something going on in my life that I need to address. That's like me having issues with maybe other people or like fitting into a group or being like a team player, if that makes sense. Now, if you have reoccurring dreams about volleyball, it probably doesn't mean the same thing to you. But the thing about reoccurring dreams is they're reoccurring because there's something you're not getting. And it's crazy how as soon as you sort of accept it or understand it, they don't happen as much. But then when they do happen again, you're like, oh, okay, this is about that thing. And now I know. You really just have to stop and understand what's going on in life at that moment and understand kind of what your daily stresses are and what are those things you're ignoring and how are they manifesting in your dreams. And then we start to have psychic dreams. And again, I'm going to go and do this in a whole nother video, but basically these are dreams where you start dreaming about the future and getting information about future events. This is talking to spirits. This could be negative or positive spirits. This could be using dreams to ask questions and get answers. This can also be using dreams to meet up with other people. So the biggest thing for those reoccurring dreams is that you just have to understand what is reoccurring. Is it the place? Is it the person? Is it the theme? And that's how you can further hone into, okay, what is this talking about? What does this mean? Now, the reason why I say that I think there's something in every dream is that sometimes it's hard to know what that reoccurring theme is or what those reoccurring symbols are, because there are a lot of positive reoccurring symbols. And I think it takes a long time of paying attention to your dreams, cataloging it, and then starting to realize, oh, there's something going on here. Keeping a dream journal is obviously the biggest way to do this, but there's some themes that I didn't realize were happening until I was reading my dream journal backwards, and I was like, okay, this is popping up a lot here. So honestly, I kind of feel like in every sort of the sense, like dreams can be reoccurring because there's probably a lot of things that go on in your life that are similar challenges that you're trying to overcome. And I'll give an example of like a positive reoccurring dream that I have. And that is like a lazy river dream that I have where there's like a lazy river in the jungles and I'm kind of just like floating along on a tube. It's going really slow and I'm paying attention to like the trees and the surroundings, and I'm just like at peace. And whenever I have those dreams, it either means that I need some of that in my life, that peace, that serenity, that going slow, going with the flow, or it might mean that I'm at a really good spot and I'm just enjoying life, and this is one of those happy dreams. All right, now out of body experience dreams. Now these are ones that I would say you wake up and you really felt like you were somewhere else. I think some people would probably argue that you always go somewhere else in your dreams. I think it's a sometimes thing. I think some people do it more often than other people. But there's sometimes where you feel like you were legitimately in that space. And it's hard to say if you were or not. It's totally a gut feeling, and I would say go with that. But there's been some times where like I felt like I was in that place and almost interacting as if I were like a spirit in that place. It was bizarre. And sometimes it'll be places you know, sometimes it'll be places you don't know. But the bigger sense here is that when you wake up, you know. It's not like a backwards thinking like, oh, I wonder if I was. Like you feel pretty confident about it. And the other way that this can happen is if you feel like somebody was in your dream, somebody was really there. This could be a spirit, this could be somebody who's living with you, this could be a total random stranger. And I'll talk about a bit about that more in the lucid dreaming part of this course. And I think it's kind of understanding that the majority of the people in your dreams are kind of like filler. You know, that your brain's filling in the empty space and trying to make it feel like reality. And so they're just kind of like cardboard cutouts, let's call it that. But then there's times in your dreams where you're like, no, that was them. They were there. I was there with them. And maybe you guys, I don't even think you both have to be dreaming at the same time. I don't know how it works, but I just believe that something is happening there. And so I would kind of categorize those as out-of-body experiences. Maybe they were out-of-body coming into your space or vice versa. Also, the sensation where you feel like you woke up and you can't move, I would sort of categorize that as an out-of-body experience where you feel like you can't come back into your body. That's like a whole nother thing that I feel like I don't know much about. But if you guys do and want to share some resources down below, please do. But that, I don't know too much about it and I can't speak to it. But I do think in some sense of the word, it's like you having a hard time coming back into that body and like waking up. And the last type of dream is lucid dreaming. And these dreams are the ones that you can control. And you can practice this. You can learn how to control and control more and become more lucid within your dreams. And I think that some intuitive people have this a lot. And I think there are ways to sort of like say, no, I don't want to keep doing that, especially if it's like exhausting. Most people tend to be more on the side of wanting to have them more, but lucid dreaming we will get to in a whole other video because there's so much that goes into that. So let's get into interpreting these. It's so hard to not talk about it while I'm talking about the different types. And so these are all different things that you need to look at while you're looking at one single dream. So if you want to, you can pause it right here and think of a dream that you really want to analyze and just write it down. Try to put it in like a paragraph on a piece of paper. Honestly, it's going to be a lot easier to follow me along and do it with me. So press pause really quick, write out a dream. Maybe you had it last night. Maybe it's a reoccurring dream, doesn't matter. And just kind of put it in a paragraph form. Now, the first thing that you want to look at with a dream is, was it symbolic or was it literal? And this is, I feel like, one of the hardest things to figure out. But after a while, I think you start to get an idea of it once you start to understand your own dreams a little bit more. One example that I'll give is like, one of the dreams that I have every now and then is like a house filling up with water and the whole thing fills up with water. So that could be literal. I could be afraid, or I could be dreaming about like an actual like flood, you know, that might be coming or something. Or, you know, maybe I have a leaky water pipe that I don't know about that needs to be addressed. Or it can be symbolic. And when I talk about water in my dreams, they usually represent emotions for me. And ever since I've kind of determined that, in my dreams now, it's like, it's so commonly used that water is there and I know, oh, okay, this is something about emotions. But it could just be that, you know, that water in that house was that my emotions are filling up and they're overspilling in regards to my home life. Maybe the home is symbolic as well. And the hardest thing about the symbols is understanding what they mean to you. And I think I've done a whole video on kind of interpreting symbols, so check out that one as well. But at the core, it's basically saying, okay, when I think of this, what is the first thing that comes to mind? So when I say shark, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Some of you might be like, oh my gosh, I love sharks. They're so, I about said fuzzy. They're really rough, but I don't know. So some people might have really positive associations with sharks. Some people might be terrified of sharks. So if a shark pops up in somebody's dream who's terrified of them, it's going to mean something totally different than like somebody who works with sharks and loves them and is with them all the time, that symbol would mean something else to them, if that makes sense. And no book is going to tell you what it means to you. I do not waste your money on dream interpretation books. The best thing you can do, again, is say, okay, what's the first thing I think of when I think of this? What's the first thing you think of when you think of teeth? What's the first thing you think of about the word chase? But that's how I figured out what my dreams were about. It was like volleyball. Ooh, it was like, oh, a bunch of girls and getting along with girls in a team environment. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind. This can also be on a more personal level. So one of the reoccurring things that I have come up is a house that I used to live in. And to me, this house was like my first home, and it has so many good feelings and emotions around it. So whenever I dream about this house, I know, oh, okay, this is like, we're talking about my home space. We're talking about it being warm and cozy. Now, it might not be that actual home. It's not like a message that I need to go move back there or something. It might just be that, hey, we're talking about family life and home life and trying to get it to a better spot or something like that. So the thing with symbols or, a dream being literal is that it could apply to anything. Any of those dreams could be symbolic or they could be literal. Like maybe your teeth are legitimately about to fall out because you're not taking good care of them. Or it could be a symbol for something else in life. Another example of that is like the out-of-body experience type of dream. Like maybe you dream about somebody you haven't seen in a really long time. And some people, I actually get questions about this during readings, and they're like, well, does that mean that person was thinking of me? Does that mean I need to reach out to them? And that's kind of the whole thing you have to figure out is it symbolic? Like, does this person represent a period of your life? Does it have a specific meaning? Did it represent like a relationship that you used to have? And does it pertain to what's going on now? Or it could be literal. Yes, they were thinking about you at that moment. Or the opposite. Maybe you've been thinking about them and you haven't realized it or something. Or maybe it's a psychic message of, hey, you should reach out to them. So timing is so important with dreams. You have to understand what is going on in your life at this moment. So I had a reoccurring dream when I was a kid. And this was one of the first ones that I took when I was learning about dreaming to try and figure out like, what the heck was this about? And in this dream, I basically was like in my grandmother's house, and like this invisible hand would pick me up around the waist. It was like a huge hand, and it would take me into my grandmother's bedroom and face me towards her closet, and it would like yell at me, and it would be this like voiceless being. It was terrifying, and I woke up every time and like ran to my parents' room. And I used to have that dream a lot, and I never knew what it was about. And then I took it to the dreaming course that I took and kind of like decoded it, and basically it came down to like me feeling like I was getting in trouble, and I had a lot of anxiety around getting in trouble. I wasn't a particularly troublemaking kid. I was just taught to be very like aware of not getting in trouble, to the point that it gave me anxiety. And so those dreams sort of manifested in that way. But my whole point here with timing is that I was having those dreams probably at a time where I was anxious or worried about what other people thought, or worried about getting in trouble. But I don't know now what was going on in my life to make me have that dream again. But if I was paying attention and I knew what it meant, then I could have been like, oh, okay, I'm way too anxious. I'm worried about what everyone thinks. I'm worried about getting in trouble. I need to just like let this go. And so you kind of have to understand what was going on in life at that time to fully understand the meaning of a dream. So reading dreams in the past is totally doable, but sometimes if you lack the context, it can be confusing to know what it's about. And so that's why I say, as you move forward with dreams, just make sure you pay attention to what's also going on in life. Like even jot that note down in your dream journal, like, hey, I think this is about this that just happened. And then you'll be able to understand it moving forward. Dream exercises. I hope this video isn't too long, but I'm trying to combine it all together. So the first exercise, if you have those dreams written out and you have a paragraph, the first thing that you can do, because you always want to write down your dream, having it written out, and it could just be typed up if it's better for you, but having it written out is going to be helpful for all of these. So if you haven't done that, do it now. And the first thing that you want to do is title your dream. Give that dream a title. You wrote it out. into all of its little details, and it's all in like a paragraph. Now trying to focus it in on what would the title be, what would be the concise overview of this whole entire thing. Sometimes titling your dream can make you kind of understand, oh, this is what it might be about. The next one is one of my favorite ways to do this, and I think I've done this like twice on this channel in various vlogs, but that is to draw your dream. So get out your notepad, try to draw it as best as you can. Don't draw it like an outsider, draw it from your perspective. And so it might not make any sense, you can just draw something, and then what you want to do is hand it to somebody else and say, hey, what is this drawing of? Don't even tell them that it's a dream, and see if they can guess what's going on in the dream. And when I did this in the class that I was learning, it was so cool to hear somebody else's interpretation of it, because I think what I did is I drew that dream where the hand was grabbing me, and somebody else was giving me words and descriptors that I hadn't even thought about. But the more she said it, it resonated with like what was going on in that dream. And you can even do this with yourself, like draw it out, and then sometimes having it physical in front of you, you can look at it and you can see something that you didn't see before. Not saying like literally you're going to be like, oh, there's a man there, but maybe there's just images, or maybe you start to notice that, you know, this is very dark, or this is very bright, or I seem to always be looking at this through a pinhole or something like that. And I was just going through my notes and I found the old picture. It's so ugly, and it's like, how could you determine anything from that? Gosh, 2014, so long ago. So drawing it out and handing it to somebody, or just looking at it yourself, can definitely be a fun exercise to do. The next exercise, and this is basically the one I use all the time, and this is called just interpreting dream symbols. So what you want to do is, once you have that paragraph, you're going to look at it and you're going to highlight the big things that stick out. Maybe it's it doesn't have to be like the same things, like it doesn't have to be things, it could be just words that you've chosen to use. So it could be verbs that you're highlighting, it could be adjectives, things that you feel like are important to the dream. And you can do as many of these as you want, or as little of them as you want. And then what you want to do is that technique that I just talked about, where basically you look at that word and ask yourself, what is the first thing that comes to my mind? And you don't want to think about it in relation to the dream at all. You just want to ask yourself, what does this mean to me? And then you're going to write it off to the side of each of these little underlined items. And once you have that all done, what you want to do is rewrite your dream, replacing those words. And it's important to rewrite it, because it turns into something new. And if you're just trying to do it in your head, it's a lot harder to see it as a whole. So pause it again if you need to, rewrite the whole thing out, replacing those new words with those symbols. And I feel like at this point you should probably be like, okay, I think I know what this is about. And you can sort of see like a pattern here of like, okay, this is clearly my anxiety, or this is clearly about home life, or, you know, I think that once you start to understand the symbols and how they work for you, you start to understand, okay, what are all these interacting things in this dream, and what bigger picture is this trying to tell? And then usually what I do here is I write one more sentence at the end to sort of like, again, it's almost like the title, but sum it up in one sentence after I've done all these symbols. And that's also so that if I'm going backwards, I'm not having to redo the whole thing. It's like I wrote down what I thought it meant. The next way you can interpret your dream is by turning all the sentences that you wrote down into questions. So go back to that original paragraph and basically turn every sentence into a question. So for example, if your first sentence was, I walk into a bar with my friend, how do you turn that into a question? You might turn it into, are you going somewhere with another person? So then you have basically a list of questions that you can ask yourself. In case the dream really doesn't make any sense to you, you can start asking, oh, okay, well, is something like this going on? Is something like that going on? And then you might be able, from those questions, to figure it out. The next dream exercise that I have is called dream re-entry. And I've seen this in a few books. And it's basically saying, okay, the next night or whatever night you want to do it, you go back into the dream. And so as you're laying in bed, you want to just get yourself into that space again. You lay there and you play out the dream over and over and over again in your head. And then as you fall asleep, theoretically, you should be able to jump back into that dream. Now, I personally have not had any success with this. That doesn't mean that you won't. But just understand that it might not look exactly the same. It might just be that you have a completely different looking dream, but it does pertain and it gives you the same message. And this is used if you really feel like you didn't understand and you want to further derive meaning from an old dream. So you could do that with any old dream, and just re-enter it. And again, it might not look the same, but hopefully you get information about it that is similar. Now, the last kind of exercises that you can do are to use just actual divination tools. You can pull out cards. You can use your psychic ability and do a meditation and be like, hey, what was going on here? You could do automatic writing. My dream was about yada yada. And basically you can actually use all these other, techniques that I teach you on my channel to figure out what that dream could have possibly meant. Now, again, remember that it might not have meaning. It might not be this big, huge thing. And also there might have only been a tiny, tiny section that really was important for you to hear. I remember when I was writing down a dream, I could really only remember about a sentence worth. But what I got from that sentence was huge. Like, I was able to pick it apart and really be like, oh my gosh, okay, that totally makes absolute sense. Alrighty, you guys, those are some different types of dreams that you can have and how to actually start interpreting them. If you want to leave your interpretations down below, I'd love to see it. I can help you guys try to figure out what they might mean. Let me know if you guys have any further questions, if there was anything I just didn't describe very well. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up. Make sure to keep an eye out for the next one. We're going to be talking about psychic dreaming, and then after that, lucid dreaming. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.